Next is a pretty exciting sale that we had. It sold within hours. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Vince and this is Out Thrifting for a Living, where I try to provide you some tips to help you along your reselling journey. Today we're going to focus on what sold for me over this past 4-day weekend, the Memorial Day weekend. We had an awesome weekend of sales. We actually sold 40 items for $930.85 for an average sales price of $23.27. We sold so many items that I'm going to break this video down into two parts because it would be like a 20 or 30 minute video if I did it. So what I'm going to do is on part one, I'm going to focus on Friday through Sunday sales, which is a typical weekend. And then part two, I'm going to focus on the Memorial Day, which was Monday, and we actually ran a 25% off the store and saw tremendous sales just from that one day and that one sale. So with that being said, let's get into the Friday through Sunday sales. First, we have a video game. It's Naruto for PlayStation 2. It's complete in box, so it has the manual and the disc in there. This one sold for $8.99 and is headed to Dorchester Center, Massachusetts. It was listed on 3 May of this year and sold within 21 days. Next, we have a Barbie. This is called the Sweetheart Barbie. Sold for $17.99. Is headed to Wildomar, California. Was listed on 9 May. And sold in 15 days. Next is another Barbie. It is the 1996 Disney 25th Anniversary Barbie. This one sold for $23.39. It's headed to Madison, North Carolina. Was listed on 19 May and only took 5 days to sell. Next is another video game. It is Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2005 for the PlayStation 2. This was not complete in box. It only has the disc, and this is like a reprinted cover art. So it's basically disc only. Sold for $5.99. It's headed to Lebanon, Kentucky. It was listed on 10 May, and it took 14 days to sell. This is a nice sale that we had. A Barbie board game. It's the Queen of the Prom board game. It was a 1994 edition. It's a reproduction of a 1961 game. It looks completely the same, just a little newer. This sold for $64.11. It's headed to Napa, California. It was listed on 22 April, so it took 32 days to sell. Next is a pretty exciting sale that we had. This is something that we took a chance on at a local estate sale. We never have sold anything like this before, but when we saw it, and for the price, I believe it was only $10. It's actually a vintage Boy Scout, like scout leader uniform. We believe it's from the 80s. We listed it on 24 May. We weren't too sure what to list it for, so I threw up $99.99 with best offers listed. Shipping, of course, and it sold within hours. So it sold maybe an hour or so after listing for full price, $99.99 plus $11.60 in shipping. So this is definitely something that you need to keep an eye out for, especially if it's at a low cost like this, because as you can see, it took an hour or so to sell and sold for over $100. It's headed to Nolanville, Texas, and yeah, took hours to sell. So that was a great find and a great sale for the weekend. Next, we have a multi-quantity order, and it's from a repeat buyer. So in a previous video, this buyer bought, I believe, 4 other Barbies, and they came back, it was a week later, and bought 4 more Barbies. So not only does it help with the profit margin, it'll all be shipped in the same box, which will save cost as well. So the first Barbie that they have is an Army Stars and Stripes Barbie. This one was the oldest listing that they purchased. It was listed on 24 March. They purchased it for $25 So it took 61 days for this Barbie to be sold. The next Barbie on this order is Barbie as Maria in The Sound of Music. This one was listed on 16 March, sold for again $25, and it took 8 days to sell. Next Barbie on this order is Winter Evening Barbie. This one was listed on 11 May, sold for $20, took 13 days to sell. And the last Barbie on this order is Barbie as the Sugar Plum Fairy. This one was listed on 23 May, sold for $25, and it only took 1 day to sell. So the total sale, it was 4 items for $95, and they're all headed to that one customer in Newark, Delaware. Next, can you guess what it's gonna be? Another Barbie. This one is the Enchanted Evening Barbie. This one was also listed on 23 May, sold for $32.99. It's headed to Harpswell, Maine, and it only took 1 day to sell. So as you can see, these more limited edition or special edition Barbies are going to sell for a higher price than your just normal run-of-the-mill kind of Barbies. If you see special edition Barbie as like a movie character or something like that, definitely look them up, especially if you can get them for a cheap price. They do sell, and they sell fairly quickly. Next is our only pair of clothings for the first 3 days of the weekend. They're some DL 1961 light blue leggings. These sold for $32.39. They were listed on 4 February of this year. They're headed to West Milford, New Jersey, and it took 111 days to sell. So as you watch my videos, you'll see that I tell you how long it took for us to sell, because I want to be very honest about that. And not everything sells quickly. So just keep that in mind and be aware of that if this is something you're trying to pursue. Next, we have a DVD. This is Joyful Noise. This was listed on 9 February. It sold for $6.15. It's headed to Buckeye, Arizona, and it took 106 days to sell. Next is another special edition Barbie. One is called Steppin' Out Barbie. Sold for $22.22. Headed to Guilford, Maine. Was listed on 19 May and only took 6 days to sell. Next is another DVD. This is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Sold for $10.99. Was listed on 24 May. It's headed to Salisbury, North Carolina, and only took 1 day to sell. Next, we have a Barbie. This one is Teacher Barbie with 2 students. We sold this one earlier in the year, and this was the second one that we had. This one sold for $44.99. It's headed to Baltimore, Maryland. Was listed on 18 May and took 7 days to sell. This was probably the most random order that we had. I didn't even know that this would be worth anything when we picked it up from a local estate sale. It just came with a bunch of Hot Wheels. We decided to look it up, and it was actually pretty valuable and worth some money. 1969 Mattel Hot Wheels Red Line International Collector's Catalog. So this little guy, only a few pages, sold for $22.16. Going to Girard, Pennsylvania. Was listed on 3 April. And it took 53 days to sell. This is another thing that you should be looking out for, or at least looking up if you get it in a lot of things. Vintage instruction manuals, instruction booklets, catalogs. Definitely look them up, because there is a lot of money to profit in there. Just like this, $22 for that little catalog. Next is another video game. So this is Need for Speed Undercover for PlayStation 2. It is just disc only. Sold for $7.18. It's headed to Hopkinton, New Hampshire. It was listed on 19 May and only took 7 days to sell. Next is our last Barbie for the weekend, for the first 3 days of the weekend. This one is 3 Looks Barbie. So apparently there's 3 different dresses that you can have in here. One sold for $30.59. It's headed to Sioux City, Iowa. Was listed on 9 May and it took 17 days to sell. Next is an action figure. It's a WWE action figure. Her name is Sasha Banks. This one sold for $22.49. Is headed to Round Rock, Texas. Was listed on 30 April and took 26 days to sell. So this is something that I learned recently. WWE figures seem to do very well, and every time I see them, no matter if it's at a yard sale or an estate sale, I'll always pick them up if they're cheap enough. Usually they're for $1 or so. Next is another video game. This is Crazy Taxi for the PlayStation 2. Again, it's disc only. Sold for $8.08. It's headed to West Sacramento, California. It was listed on 19 May and took 7 days to sell. Last, FIFA Soccer 07 for the Xbox. So this one is complete in box. It has the manual and the disc. Sold for $10.99. It's headed to Newnan, Georgia. Was listed on 19 May and took 7 days to sell. So that'll wrap up the first 3 days of the Memorial Day weekend. Again, I'm gonna recap. It was 22 items for $578.28 for an average sales price of $26.29. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out the second part. Also, if you enjoy this kind of content, please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the video. If there's anything that I can do better, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to incorporate that into the next videos. But with that being said, I'll see you on the next one.